Hello and welcome to We Will Manage, the podcast exploring the weird and wonderful world of work. We're two young professionals figuring out our careers one conversation at a time.
Today, we'll be diving into the world of networking. So stick around to learn how networking done well can get you flown across the world, how a drink too many can get you in trouble, and how we're all just human beings looking for connection. Let's just jump in. So this is our first deep dive of the podcast on our first topic. The topic of choice of today is networking.
Networking.
So I'm going to start with one first kind of game. Bean.
Okay.
Alba. What's the first word that comes to mind when I say networking?
The first word?
First word. Yeah.
People.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's super interesting. I've actually asked a few people around me. Mm-hmm. I got a lot of responses. Business. I got LinkedIn, connections. What was one I got, which was more on the lines of what I was expecting, was
Event.
No, it wasn't one word. It was 20-year-olds messing around or something like that. And,
Let me guess. A 50-year-old said that.
Yeah.
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 I don't know who. I've got no one in mind, but just that kind of answer.
So yeah, and I looked up to try and see if there was a survey that had been done or something, because I think people have a certain assumption on what networking is, and maybe a bit of a negative connotation. And indeed, when I look it up, there's a lot of negative words that are related to networking. So like,
I think
dirty,
like boring. You kind of think, networking. It's like you just can't be bothered. Kind of, comes to mind.
Insincere was one that I saw come up quite a lot. So I think it's really interesting to talk about networking and what it is to us, and what it is like in our different industries as well. We have very different perspectives of this. I'm in more of a corporate side of networking when it comes to work, and you're a pure entrepreneur and you have your own company and you have to find your own clients, then I think it would be really interesting to have your point of view. So I'm going to start us off with a conversation that I had with a tutor or a mentor that I had relatively recently, and he was talking to us about networking, and he kind of asked us, used the same kind of starting conversation that I just did, and he asked us what we thought networking was and how you start that conversation. And he explained to us that for him, networking, it wasn't anything insincere. It wasn't just talking to people for something that you want or something that you're expecting to get out of it. It was pure interest and curiosity in what other people do, what other people know, and kind of being genuinely interested in the people around you and opening yourself up to what that could bring, right?
It gives it a very different perspective, doesn't it? Because then you're suddenly looking at it as I've got a person in front of me and I want to know about them, rather than how am I going to get something out of this? You know, it does flip it by looking at it like that. It's very interesting. So also, before we go any further, to point out that we are going to, our idea with the episodes, as it's our first one, is that we want to each take the lead on different episodes, depending on if we have a special passion for it or just for whatever reason feel like we want to kind of take the lead on it. So Saoirse has said that she won't take the lead on this first one about networking. I will be taking the lead on the next one. So it is going to be mainly led by Saoirse, and I will be giving my input. And when it comes to questions and stuff, we'll both give our advice and all that. But it's mainly Saoirse's done most of the research for this one.
Yeah, so we kind of want to lead the episodes on subjects that we are passionate about, in particular that we feel like we've had a lot of contact with, or, So networking is something that I've started to learn about, and I've been in certain situations. I've been in the very classical, event fair, work fairs. I've been in a lot of them now. But then I've started recently, as I'm starting to get into the more businessy side of things, since I'm working on creating this new company, networking has changed a lot in its meaning for me. So it's not so much about making work contacts that you might, be a client of or possibly be a supplier to or things like this. It's more about having conversations with as many people of different situations and backgrounds as possible, and just opening yourself up to what could come of that with no particular interest or ask or anything like that. So I think that's
or
a
like
really
specific idea of what you want to get out of it.
Exactly. And I think that networking is something that goes so much further than that business fair or that LinkedIn message.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's an interesting subject. I'd like to know what networking looks like for you. What's your definition of networking in your domain? Because you don't necessarily have like work fairs or the classical sense of networking.
Yeah. It's funny because it's almost like when people say networking, I always feel like a little like, almost like pang of like, not guilt, but like, because I feel always like I should be doing more of the networking. I feel like like you say, I don't think I've ever been to a specific event for networking. I've been to events where I've networked, but it hasn't been like a networking event, like fair, like thing, like you're saying. And I think for me, the main word that would come to mind when thinking of, do I network? Do I not network? Like, how would I describe what I do? And it would almost be more like collaborations. It's almost more like you meet people who are interesting, and it's almost a how could we maybe at some point help each other. And it's really interesting because sometimes that is in a professional sense, it's another professional, and it's going to be how can we work on a project together for a client. And other times it can be a client, and it's like, when you're ready, it would be really cool to work together and for me to help you with your business, so I'm a branding specialist, in case you didn't listen to our first episode. And I have my own studio. So sometimes I'll meet people and they're like, oh, I've been wanting to do, a website for ages or whatever. And it's, they might end up being a client in the future, but it's almost like, how can we help each other? It's normally how the conversation goes. And it can be just, I feel like it is a very different way of networking. Like I say, whenever I hear someone say, oh, I've just been to so many networking events recently, and I'm like, should I be doing that? Because I've never done that. And probably for a short period of time, I was working as a photographer for a magazine. And that's probably when I did my most like intentional networking, because I would be sent to all these events. So I would go prepared with my business cards and everything to like sell myself. And something that to flow into it from that is how that changed for me. And in that period of time, I think I was doing that for about 6 months. And at first, I wouldn't talk to anybody. I would leave the event and I hadn't given my business card to anybody because as it isn't a business, like a networking event, you kind of feel a bit cheeky being like, I'm Alba and I do this. And that also comes into it. I didn't feel confident with like what I did. I wasn't like, how do you sum up what you do in a few sentences?
I'm Alba and I do what exactly?
I mean, for the longest time, the business cards I had before the ones I have now had on it audiovisual designer and artist. Because I was like, what do I do? I don't know. I finally narrowed it down. But, it would be like, I'm Alba, and if you need any photography ever, or if you need your website done, but then it just didn't feel like solid enough to present to somebody that I didn't know. And especially as it wasn't a networking event, and to be like, if you ever need anything, here's my credit. And I hardly ever left my business card. But by the time I got to the end of it, I would very often get asked, because it was always, and who are you here for? Because, there'd be a few photographers, and I'd now come up with this answer of, I'm here for this magazine, I'm here on behalf of this magazine, but I actually have my own business that's this, and this. And I became a lot more confident in it. So the interesting thing, I think, with networking when it's you and your business versus when you're someone looking for a job. It's you're representing yourself and you're selling yourself at the end of the day. And it's so different. It's fascinating. And I think the level of confidence you have to have, because it's no longer, it's you're describing your whole business, not just what you are able to do. It's very interesting.
That's so interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously very different from the experience I've had when it comes to networking up until now. I mean, maybe it's going to start evolving now. It's been a bit different recently, but I've been at a company, working at a company as an employee for the past 3 years. And for me, networking events were networking events. So business fairs where I would either go to help with the sales, although I'm not a salesperson. It's not something that I'm particularly interested in. I'm starting to dabble in it. I think it's an interesting thing to learn to do.
It's necessary, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's something that's necessary to be able to sell yourself or what you're doing, even though I'm like you, it's not something that I'm interested in at all.
Yeah. So the networking was really the standard sense of the word, where you go to these events and you talk to people and you're a bit awkward when you introduce yourself. You're not really sure if they want to talk to you or not. And it was just didn't have much purpose, you know? And one thing that I had to navigate was, I don't know if you've ever been in this situation, but at these networking events, there's often a buffet, right? There's often a buffet. I mean, there's often little alcoholic drinks, which is a whole other story. But I haven't really had much situations with alcohol consumption. I think that's a networking horror story that we might hear quite a lot from other people. Yes. But I'm a big foodie. I like food. And when you're a young professional and you're at your first networking event and there's free food everywhere, right? But you're trying to make contacts and talk to people and find whatever it is you're supposed to be looking for your
while
company.
Stuffing as many mini sausage rolls
thing,
in
right?
your face as possible.
Everybody wants to stuff as many sausages in their face, right? Everybody's there for the food because you're by the food table, which, by the way, is the best place to network statistically.
Yeah. Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. Like if you're looking for where to put your stand at a business fair, it's known that the best place to have your stand is on a main alleyway near the food, because that's where the most people are.
I mean, yeah. I don't need to see any proof. I believe you.
So it's a balancing act at this table of a buffet to try and have an intellectual conversation with someone between bites,
whilst wondering if you have spinach in your teeth.
Yep. So I soon figured out that you it's not there to be eaten. I mean, it is there to be eaten, but if you want to do any networking, good luck. Yeah. I haven't found the way to do it because one of you is, busy munching, and then they'll finish a very interesting sentence, and then they'll expect a response when you're
like, the experience I have with this is at these events that I would say, and it's an extra layer of, I'm not even supposed to be a guest. I'm a photographer. I'm getting paid to be there, but all the free food. I remember one of the first ones I went to was sushi, and I love sushi. And it was like, oh my God. And it's this balancing act of making it look like you're not eating. So you're just
quickly
do you want a photo? I can take a photo. 1 second. And then again with the drink, like you say, so there it's even more of a thing because I'm supposedly working, and now they're asking if I want a glass of champagne, and I can't be seen with a glass of champagne, but it's free alcohol.
They expect you not to drink because you're working?
Who knows?
Maybe.
And then also the thing is, it was always very like luxury, rich people, I'm going to say, at these events who just don't eat. So it's like all this food is just sat there. All these people are just not eating it, what am I supposed to do? I haven't had lunch. It's just going to go to
Don't know
waste.
about the rest of you.
I know. So, yeah.
So yeah,
And then again, I would always like you say, everyone's always gravitating towards the food. So I would always get caught being asked, oh, and who are you here with? Or what's your name? While I was trying to smuggle this mini hamburger.
There you go. So you know exactly what
I know
talking
exactly the struggle.
So if anybody has any advice on that front, I think so far my main strategy is try and get there soon, eat a few things so that you're not
Get it out your
starving.
system.
Get out your system or in your system, and then have the intellectual conversations. And don't expect to satiate. Is that a word? Eat enough.
Yeah.
You're not there to eat.
No.
You can't expect to eat enough.
Yeah, get your priorities
as
right.
much as you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to figure it out. Plan a nice dinner afterwards.
Yeah. And I think probably with the drink, I would say probably the best thing to do is to have one in hand, but don't really use it.
That's
so
a
it's
good
something to also
idea.
do with your hands.
That's some good advice.
It's like something that you're like, oh yeah, I'm here, I'm enjoying, but you're not getting drunk. You're not embarrassing yourself. And
Nobody's
also
trying to offer you a drink.
Exactly. Because I've had that. Yeah, people being like, "Are you sure you don't want it? Are you sure you don't?" So if you have one in your hand, you get left alone.
Yeah, I have a bit of a story to tell, but I'll get into that later when it comes to. Do you want a drink? Anyway.
Oh, can't wait.
So I was looking into some experts on networking. There's a really interesting TED Talk that I recommend by Andrew Griffiths. He's quite a young professional, and he's really into networking. And the main thing that I got out of his video, something that I really related to, was luck is people. So what does this mean? I feel like often I personally feel very lucky for my work situation. I feel very lucky where I am and all the opportunities I've gotten and what feel like coincidences. And I do feel very lucky. But I think a big part of that is people. And usually opportunities come with people or come from people. And just being open and curious and having conversations with as many people as possible and creating that connection in the human sense of the word with different people from different domains that can then bring you so many different opportunities in the future. I think that you have experienced this quite a lot. I feel like a lot of your opportunities that have come about have been from connections that you've had with people. I also think a really strong point in you is you're very generous. You're very generous with what you help people with. And I think that's brought you real luck per se, but it's not luck at all. Opportunities.
No. Yeah, I absolutely agree with what you're saying about feeling lucky. I think we are so in such a, it's like saying, like, it's such a fortunate position that we love what we do. But I think we have worked hard to get here. You know, it's not just happened for us. So it is like to use that language carefully. And I think one thing that I kept coming back to when I was thinking about networking, of traditional networking, like corporate networking, like you said before, versus more entrepreneurial networking, I think it comes down to that the big difference is trust. I think when it's more corporate networking, I think it can be more like, have they got the credentials? Have they got the right recommendation letter? Have they got, you know, does their previous boss recommend them? Whereas when it's for an entrepreneur, I feel like it's more when you're making connections with people, they have to trust you and they have to believe in you as a person and believe that you're not going to scam them at the end of the day, because you could just be, you know, you're just one person doing things and they're like, I don't know you. But if you, I think it's maybe a like being genuine, people feeling like when they're meeting you and they can feel like they relate to you and that what they see is what they get, I guess.
That's
maybe.
a really good word. I think feeling like you relate to someone. And I think there's so many ways to find common ground with somebody.
Yeah.
No matter what the age difference is, no matter how different whatever you do for work is, you can often find something that you're interested about them. And that's usually because it's common ground, something that you know a little bit about, or something that you've heard of but want to know more. I think feeling like you can relate to someone is what builds that connection.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And they've got to think, yeah, exactly. And it's like, why do they remember you over someone else? Why would they choose you over someone else? When, I mean, this is something that we'll definitely get into in a future episode, but especially when it's like, I have 3 years of experience versus other people who are in the same field as me that have 30 years of experience. So why are you choosing me? You know? And I think when you, not transmit, but like you are able to communicate your vision and like what you are passionate about and kind of your way of seeing things, people can be like, oh, I agree with that. And because I agree with that, then I want to work with you, you know? But I think trust is such a big part of entrepreneurial networking. And it comes down to that. I think there's always this, I kind of said at the beginning, but there's kind of this like mutual value exchange, you know? It's like, I'm going to get from you this experience and working for a new client and in a new field and in a new whatever. And in exchange, you're going to get a much more personalized branding than if you go to a big company. You know, like there's always going to be like something that's like, it's worth it for both of us. And I think that's just interesting. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's super cool. If anybody is into the kind of, I think it could be interesting for anybody. This TED talk was really interesting in giving little tips on how to have that confidence, first of all, to go and talk to somebody. Usually, I mean, you spoke about events that weren't necessarily networking events, but they're generally events, even if it's not a networking event per se, but people are there for work, to talk to people, to meet people. And in general, everybody's thinking the same thing as you. Everybody's thinking, oh, I feel a bit awkward to go and talk to that person. Just go and introduce yourself. You don't even necessarily have to talk about only work. I often end up, the most interesting conversations I've had networking have probably been about skiing. And once you figure out that somebody has a similar interest, that's when you start up that connection, and then you can ask them, oh, what do you do? Oh, that's super interesting. And then have a conversation. So I think it's finding those things in common and just being genuinely curious about what people do. Absolutely. An interesting tip that he gave in the video was when you're saying goodbye, it's often a bit of an awkward situation. Maybe you're talking to someone, you realize, it's not, you don't have much for me. And it can be a bit of a difficult situation. Maybe you say, oh, I need to go and get another drink, or go to the loo, or
There's only
so many times you can say that.
Yeah, before people start thinking that you have a problem.
Exactly. So one of the things that's suggested is to promise an introduction. So if I'm talking to you, Alba Harden, you tell me about Costa Studio. I'm plugging the studio a little bit there.
Yeah, nice.
You've been telling me about Costa Studio, and I'm thinking, I mean, there's not much I'm working on right now. My branding's done. I don't need anything more. You're a very nice person, but I want to go and talk to more people because that's what I'm here for. I could say to you, so I know someone that you would be really interested to speak to.
Or have you spoken with so and so yet? Yeah,
exactly. And it's a good way to kind of pass you on to somebody else. And then maybe you don't know anybody that this person could be interested in talking to, in which case you can ask, so who are you here to meet today? What are you looking for? And I'll keep an eye out for that, and I'll let you know.
Yeah,
I think that's a really brilliant tip. So for those of you that are going to an event at some point, talk to the people, don't feel awkward, and it's okay to say goodbye as well. And you can promise an introduction, and everybody's happy.
Exactly. I think also something that's good to take the pressure off a little bit is it's fine to go. I was actually talking with someone recently, and they said, I rather go to an event and talk to 3 people, but like have proper conversations with them, than try and talk to 50 different people. Because one, I stress myself out, and two, it's shallow conversations. You're not going to find that connection like we're talking about. And are they going to even remember you?
Yeah.
So like I rather go to an event and talk to 2, 3, 4 people and make sure, that you actually have an interesting conversation, actually feel like you've met someone rather than just sold yourself to 50 different people, spoken to 50 different people, and not actually, like made any kind of real connection. I feel like that's a big thing with networking events. You're like, I've got to talk to as many people as possible.
Yeah, and it can get a bit stressful and tiring.
Absolutely.
Networking events are tiring.
Very tiring.
Having the same conversation over and over again.
Yeah, it's like, what spin am I going to do on it this time?
Yeah. What about reaching out to people spontaneously, either digitally or, the first thing that comes to my mind is LinkedIn. But on any platform, or even maybe at, I don't know, what other situation you could reach out to somebody spontaneously.
I would say in this case, I think what's the main thing is to try and reach out in a way that it makes it obvious that you've done your research about that person, that you haven't just seen, oh, this company is doing well, or that person, I don't know, whatever it is that however you found them, that it looks like you've actually done your research about them, about their company, and give personality. Like, even it's crazy. Even as a studio owner, have been recently getting so many people contacting me being like, if you ever need a job, like if you ever have any openings, like let me know. And so many of them are exactly the same. And it's the kind of messages that I feel like I would maybe send, like, however many years ago. And it's like, don't be afraid to show personality and be like, I love how you're doing this, this, and this. I think I'm really inspired by that. The reason I think I would maybe be a good fit with you would be because of this, this, and this. And maybe I'm just saying this as a younger person, but I feel like being too formal kind of isn't really the way anymore. Is my opinion, is how I've been feeling. Even with my clients, I feel like they prefer a more casual kind of interaction than it being super proper and talking like Mr. and Mrs. and
people reach out to you on LinkedIn, maybe mainly
on Instagram.
That's interesting.
Mainly on Instagram, yeah, which is interesting. On LinkedIn, I know mostly get other people who are at my level. That's more like, you guys look like you're doing really cool things. If there's ever any way that we could collaborate or do anything together or work on a project together, that would be great. That's what mainly I get on LinkedIn. It is true that also the LinkedIn of the studio is quite new. So we've not posted as much on there, whereas Instagram we have been more active, even though it's the same amount of time, but I feel like it feels like it's been there for longer. So that is interesting, but that is definitely something that I think as an entrepreneur, networking is all over the place, especially on online platforms, which dips in
any conversation you have with anyone
and anything that you put out there. I mean, that's going also into like branding and all that, but anything that you put out there is networking. And I actually, which is hilarious, I networked the other day by putting up a photo of Knox, my dog, on our Instagram's story saying, here's the studio's mascot. And somebody answered saying, oh my God, I also work with my dog on me all the time. And we started talking, and it turns out that she actually lives nearby, and we're going to try and see if we can meet up in person. And, from a dog photo, I actually had 2 people answer, but the other one, we did talk a little bit, but she's not in the same country. So it's kind of but who knows in the future what that could turn into. But so you'll appreciate this. I don't know. Nobody who doesn't speak Spanish is going to appreciate this, but this person, she was Spanish, the person who answered. And she said that her dog was called Puchero.
Oh,
which is basically a Spanish kind of stew, I guess you would say, like soupy stew.
Chicken stew,
puchero. It's hilarious.
I love that. I now want a dog, so I can call it puchero.
Puchero, I know, it's amazing. So So yeah, it's literally anywhere and anything on any platform is networking. It's craziness.
Yeah. Absolutely. And because I've been asked recently how to send a message spontaneously on LinkedIn, particularly. I mean, I'm a lot more. I actually don't even have a personal Instagram anymore because that was hacked. But anyway, I don't use Instagram at all for work. So yeah. So it's all LinkedIn oriented. And when you're trying to connect with people or new people, be that because you're interested in what they do, because you just want to learn more, or maybe you're looking for a job a lot of the time. And somebody asked me recently, advice on how to send that message because you have limited characters. I don't know if you've ever done this on LinkedIn.
Yes, I have.
You have limited characters.
I actually wanted to send a message to somebody and I couldn't because they didn't follow me back. And I was like, what? That's ridiculous. And I had to pay for, if I could try LinkedIn Premium for the first month for free. And I was like, what is this? It was somebody who was offering a job. Well, not offering a job. They were asking for somebody who'd do their website. And I tried to send them a message and I couldn't.
Oh,
I know. Weird. But then I got the LinkedIn Premium and then it was a limited characters thing.
Mm-hmm. So usually if you're on your computer and you send a connection, you can always send a 200 character message.
It's difficult.
Yeah. If you're on your phone, you can't send this message for anybody that's planning on doing it. So make sure you're on your computer.
Interesting.
And here again, I think it's the same. I would say the same thing. So show that you know a little bit about this person, like you said, not in a creepy, stalky way.
No, not in a I've hacked you for several months away, but yeah, and I'm interested.
I think the main message here is show that you know enough about that person to have genuine curiosity and interest in what they do. So,
but it doesn't sound like a generic message that you've sent to 1,000 different companies,
Exactly. And people are often, not all the time, people are often really happy to help. So I actually got a message a few months ago now from a girl that was finishing her master's degree. Or no, she was working on her PhD. She was finishing her PhD. So she was about the same age as me. And she was... I mean, the message I received was, I see the company that you're working at, I see what you're working on, and I'm really interested to know more. I mean, I'm doing my PhD, and I'd love to know what the industry side of things are more are like. And I felt really,
flattered.
Like that was a bit of a compliment. Yeah, I felt really flattered. And I met her for lunch, and we spoke. And at the time, if I had any job to offer her, she probably would have appreciated it, but she learned all about the industry, and I learned about what she was working on, and we are now still in contact.
Yeah.
So just goes to show that it's worth it, and just go for it. And if you show genuine interest and maybe have a bit of an ask, like you could learn something from that person, flatter them a little bit. I'd like to learn from you if you have time for a coffee, or don't go straight out and say, "Do you have a job to offer me?" That won't work.
Won't work. No. And I think it's also important to be to understand that maybe not now, but you never know when, having there's so many contacts that I've made and I've seen 100%. Someone and then 2 years down the road, it's like, oh, hi, we've somehow got back in contact, and then, something's come of it. So it can be really, it doesn't have to be, look at it as people. And people that, could be in your life and could maybe then at some point, turn into something more. But if not, it's just another connection. It's fine.
Yeah. And often it can lead to something, whatever you're looking for. So it could lead to that job, and it could lead to that position. So you might as well talk to as many people as you can. And worst case scenario, you learn more about the industry and about the world that you're interested in.
Something
Do you have... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say quickly that it's something that's also very interesting that I hadn't thought of until now that we're speaking. As in I have, but not in relation to networking, is so recently a common friend of ours who was more your friend got in contact with me because she was wanting to kind of maybe start her own business, and it was in a similar field to mine. And after we had our first conversation, because she was very unsure whether she should reach out to me or not about it, she said, "Thank you so much, because I would expect someone who's doing the same as me not to want to kind of give me advice because, you know, at the end of the day, we have the same clients. And it's something that's so true that so many, I don't know what it's like in other fields, but I know that with photographers, this happens a lot. There's this like competition that's just so sad. And I said to her, like, we are two people helping each other out, regardless of what it is. If I have anything that I can offer you, I want to give that to you. And we are different people. Even if we are doing the same thing, we will attract different clients. And I think the whole thing of us being competition, I think is so ridiculous. And then literally a couple of days, I saw this post which said something like, you shouldn't be afraid to work or to get to know people in the same field as you or something like that. And it ended with competition happens at the bottom, collaboration happens at the top. And I loved that. And talking about it with my mom, we were going into it because she works with horses, and she says with horses, it's exactly the same. Two people who do horse things in the horse world, they can be like so competitive and not want to like share their secrets in big quotation marks, when it's like, that's so not the point. You know, if you've learned something that can, you know, help me and save me years of trial and error, why not? And we're going to attract different people because we have our own way of doing things. And it's just, I find it so sad. And she said that in her opinion, it comes down to people not being secure in themselves and feeling
100%.
like if you come along, you're going to take their clients and they're going to be irrelevant. And that's just sad.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think that's a really
add that.
beautiful message. I've felt that a lot. I've learned so much more from people than I have from any training,
Absolutely.
or conferences or searches, even ChatGPT. I've learned so
Absolutely.
much more from just talking to people, asking questions in the industry about so many subjects, like the really technical stuff that you think you would learn more from an academic conference.
Yeah. But
No, just talk to people that work in that industry.
There's
They'll
nothing
tell you
like
the
life
things that are most
experience.
interesting.
Nothing like life experience. It's crazy.
And sharing, like you say, if you share information with somebody, they're going to be so much more open to give back.
Exactly.
And to share their knowledge. And I think to round off your story, didn't that person then bring you opportunities?
Exactly. And she has then met people and said to anyone that will listen, she'll say, oh, and I've got a friend who does branding and websites if you need someone, you know.
Which
so
she wouldn't have if you'd been a bit more.
Exactly. Like, no, because you're wanting to do this and that's also something that I do. And it's just so ridiculous. And yeah, I don't understand it. I had the opposite thing, and we hadn't talked about this yet. This was almost a year ago that this happened, but it's the same kind of concept we want to create here, which is to create a place where you can ask these questions. And something that's taken me 2 years to learn because I didn't have anybody to ask. Somebody doesn't have to go through the bad experiences that I went to, maybe because they can learn from my mistakes. And if I can say to you, actually, I've learned that it's better to do it like this, or I found that actually isn't like that, it's like this, then even better, you know?
Isn't that just how humanity became such a brilliant species? Because we were able to write things down so people could learn from the people before them.
Exactly.
Let's bring that together. Let's bring that back.
Let's bring that back, please. Totally.
So I wanted to ask if you had any stories, either maybe a horror story or maybe a very kind of surprising opportunity that you've gotten or something like that has come from anything to kind of resemble networking.
Yes. So I had to think about this. And at first I was like, nothing, because like I said, when it comes to networking, I'm like, But when I sat down and thought about it, which one do you want first? I'm going to say the horror one isn't too horror. It's just a moment that I felt so undervalued.
Oh,
It wasn't even that. I just felt like that was just so horrible.
Let's have that one.
Let's have that one first. Okay. So this was at an event that I was a photographer for. And I say most of my pure networking experiences happened at this kind of event. And there was once, it's a short story. Once I was basically it was this artist that he was up and coming, and he was like really popular, and everyone was wanting to talk to him. And I thought it would be so cool to do a collaboration project where, you know, featuring his artwork, and I could do a video or photography, or even if he needed a website, something. I wanted to somehow make this connection because I thought it would be really cool. And when I tried to talk to him, he said, "Aren't you the photographer?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Then you're just staff. Why are you talking to me?" And I was like, I'm going to go over there now and cry.
That's so horrible.
Mm-hmm. And that was one of my first
have wanted
events.
To work with him anyway.
No, I know. Well, exactly. You attract the people who, you know, and obviously that was never meant to be. But that was and that was one of my first events. And I was like,
that's so sad. Mm-hmm. Hard to get yourself back up and confident after that experience.
It took me a while to even try and go up to someone and be like, "Hi."
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm just staff.
I'll give you a little cringe story so you can
feel better.
Feel a bit better. So it's not networking per se, but it was just after my first networking event. So it was my first business fair. I had been working for the company I'm currently at for a couple of weeks, and they sent me to France with our commercial director, just to kind of show me the ropes. I was going to learn about the product that we were going to sell, and, you know, good experience, right? So we did this fair. I actually have two parts to this story. The second day of the fair, I had mistakenly, which I've never done again, only taken one pair of trousers for this 2-day event. So second day of this event, I realized that there was a hole in my trousers. You know, right where my bottom is. I realized in the bathroom.
Right where you don't want a hole.
Exactly. So I suddenly had this hole in the sewing, in the seam of the trousers. I think I can't remember what I did. I think I tied a jacket around myself or something because I didn't have an extra pair of trousers. Anyway.
I don't care if this doesn't look professional.
So always take a spare pair of trousers
or a sewing kit.
Spare outfit. Or a sewing kit, yeah.
Or both.
Always take a spare outfit just in case. You never know what can happen.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be caught without that extra outfit. So that's
with a hole in your bum.
Anyway, that wasn't even the part of the story that's So I think it was the first evening of this event because we were staying there for a night. We were staying at a hotel, and you know, I'd only been at the company a couple of weeks. I was a bit kind of
exciting,
awkward and nervous, and didn't really know how this worked. It was my first business travel. I didn't know, like, the company pays for dinner. That's pretty cool. Anyway, so the commercial director of my company, who it was lovely and I get along with very well. Let's say we don't have many common references when it comes to life and humor. Yeah. But anyway, he asked me if I wanted to go out, you know, to have dinner together, have a couple drinks, and I said, yeah, sure. So we went out, found a place for our first beer, had a first beer. He's a grown man. I am not. Neither. And I'm not somebody that drinks particularly much. And so I had my first beer, and then we went to the next place where we were going to have dinner, but their kitchen wasn't open yet. So we had another beer.
Oh no.
And by this time I was tipsy, right? So then we went in and we sat down for where we were going to have dinner, and he ordered a glass of wine. So I said, sure, I'll have a glass of wine.
Were you feeling your cheeks go red at this point just because of all the alcohol? I know that's what happens to me.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was there. And so we were at this high table, and he left to go to the toilet, and I was feeling very cool at my first event, my first business trip. I was at this fancy restaurant. I wasn't paying
for any of it.
Had my glass of wine. So I thought, I'm gonna take a photo and send it to my friends, right? So I took out my phone. I don't know, have I ever told you this story?
I had no idea where it's going, but I am here for it.
So I took out my phone, and I was setting up, for the picture, but made sure I had both of the glasses of wine in it. And as I don't know how I did it, as I kind of sat back after taking the picture, I knocked over his glass of wine.
Oh no.
Not only did I knock it over his glass of wine, I knocked it onto his phone.
He wasn't there.
He wasn't there.
He was in the bathroom.
So
oh my God.
I quickly put the glass back, and I wasn't sure what to do. It hadn't all fallen out, and I was like, oh, what do I do? And then I cleaned up his phone with my serviette. Yeah, at least it didn't break.
Even worse.
And I was feeling
Getting
terrible.
hot.
I was so stressed. Yeah, me too. Telling the story. And then I was like, okay. Act normal. And he got back from the bathroom, and he looked at me, and he said, did you have a little mishap with the wine? He had seen me the whole time because he was standing in the queue.
Oh my God.
I wanted to die.
Quick question. Do you still work with him?
Yep.
Amazing. Just amazing.
I'm hoping that it was just a thing that happened for him and that he quickly forgot about it. I personally cringed
seared into your
this
brain.
very day.
Oh no, that's and the fact that you then know he was watching you.
Oh, it was the worst part. It was the worst part. I mean,
You couldn't even pretend the waiter had knocked it over. You couldn't even pretend something.
Nope.
A bird flew in from outside.
Honestly,
And just
thank God he said it before I tried to make up an excuse.
that would have definitely been at least he was like, yeah, I saw you. Oh God.
But luckily he found it funny. His phone was fine. And I
Crisis
had
averted.
dinner and I went to bed soon after. So yeah, that was my first
Tipsy
mishap.
with alcohol and embarrassment.
And a commercial
combo.
director.
And a commercial director. A combo I'm sure many people have seen before. I'm sure you're not alone.
If you at home or wherever you are listening have any of these stories, please send them in so I feel a bit better about myself.
No.
We could read through them.
We actually do
that'd
have
be
a
great.
couple here to read. Should we read them now? Might be fun. Should we do one each?
Give us one.
I'll start. Let's see. First story. I attended a multi-day conference that provided all meals for attendees. Attendees. All meals for attendees in an effort to have everyone network during said meals, like we were saying. Breakfast each morning was held in an area accessed by walking down a flight of stairs. I was headed down the stairs, looking into the room to see who was already at breakfast and thinking about who I might eat and chat with. I lost my footing and rolled/bounced all the way down to the breakfast.
Oh no.
I rolled/bounced all the way down to the breakfast area with my laptop tumbling behind me. Of course, everyone stopped eating and talking and started gasping and staring. Everyone knew who I was after that.
I mean, what a way to make an impression.
Yeah, I mean, you know how I was saying about make sure you get some personality in there?
Make sure you're remembered. They'll definitely remember you if you fall down the stairs to breakfast.
Fall down the stairs to breakfast with your laptop tumbling behind you.
Right, we've got another one here.
We've got another one.
So I was serving myself some layered cheese spread at a reception for one of Canada's top poets.
All around food. I love it. So it is true. Food is the main thing about networking.
It is. This is, expected, honestly.
Yeah, cheese spread. I'm there.
So, yeah, cheese spread. Cheese spread at a reception for one of Canada's top poets. I was chatting with said poet and a couple of professors I hope to work with in the future. As I scooped the cheese onto my plate, the poet reached over, patted my stomach and said, "Girls like us have to watch how much rich food we eat, don't we?"
What do you even do?
That's not a funny story.
That's not a funny story. And that's not... I mean, where's girl code? Jesus.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine? With the professors there that you want to... What would you even answer to that?
You wouldn't. You would just... Actually, oh my God, I thought of something that happened to me the other day. Somebody in my office had a meeting with the bankers, right? The bankers is about the most formal people that ever come to our office. They're always in suits, and you're always expected to also be in, formal clothing. Yeah. So I wasn't the one with the meeting with these people. I didn't know they were coming, but I was just someone told me at the office a couple minutes beforehand, so I knew who they were. So they walked in, and there was this older banker that came in first. I'm cringing already.
Oh no.
And so I obviously he said hello to the person that he was there to meet, and I was the only one else at the office. So I thought I'll go and say hello, formally. So I got up and I went over and I said, I'll say hello. And I gave him my hand to shake his hand, and he shook my hand and he leaned in. And in Switzerland, right, as in Spain and France, sometimes to say hello to someone, you'll give them, here it's actually 3 kisses.
That's like the French is also 3, isn't it?
French is 2 in most places, some places 3, and then some places 1. Anyway,
yeah.
So here in Switzerland, you can also give people kisses on the cheek to say
God.
hello. Not usually in a professional situation, which is why I shook his hand first. But as he leaned in, I thought maybe in his generation it was a bit different. So I leaned in to give him, a kiss, and then and I don't know why he leaned in the first place, because then he said, "Oh, you were going to give me the kisses."
Oh,
That's
no.
a very warm welcome.
No.
Oh my God, I was mortified.
Oh, no.
Thank God the other person that was at the office is somebody that I get along with, and I sent them a text.
They could rescue you.
An instant message at that point saying, "I'm so embarrassed." And as this
Tierra
banker,
trágame.
yeah, exactly.
Oh my God. Earth
And as
swallow
this
me
banker,
up.
after his meeting, came out of the office room, so I said goodbye. I waved from a distance this time.
Yeah, you were
Didn't
like,
get
I'm not
up.
getting close to you again.
Nope. And he said, he reminded me, he was like, "Thank you for the warm welcome."
I feel like that's such an older generation thing to do, to like, that's how they used to think we're cute, and they're like, "Oh, you remember that thing you did that you're dying of embarrassment about? Do you want me to remind you again?" No, thanks. Oh God.
But I was wondering if you have any kind of surprising or impressive connections or opportunities that have come up from random people that you've met.
I think I had to think about this because there's quite a few that I thought of. And the one that I landed on, because I remember when it happened, I was like, I can't believe this is my life, essentially. I was like, oh my God. And basically what it was is someone that I met, we talked about this in our first episode, in someone that I met in my master's degree, they were in the same academy, but they were in a different course, different degree. I started working with them with their developing their brand, basically, but we started working on a monthly basis, so we got to know each other quite well. And about a year after we started working together, he got invited to a kind of like work retreat, like a business retreat, I guess you could call it. And he could bring along a guest that he thought would benefit and would also take advantage of the experience. And he asked if I would go with them. And it was in Costa Rica, all expenses paid. And yeah, that was crazy. And that was a really good networking experience as well, obviously. But it was quite crazy. And actually something that was quite funny is that we had never met in person. It had all been the masters I did was an online academy. Not just because it was COVID, they were online before. And so we met online. We'd seen each other doing Zoom calls, but we never met. So the first time we were meeting was at Madrid airport, about to get on a 9-hour flight, sat next to each other. So it was like, this could go really well or really badly. And you just kind of like invited me to come with you to this business retreat in Costa Rica and then once we got there, we were sharing a little apartment for a night. And the next day we were heading to the retreat. And at the retreat, we didn't know if we were going to be sharing a room. So we were going to be possibly spending like 8 days, like together. He is an older gay man. So I didn't know how this was going to go, but luckily we got on. It was like we'd known each other. You know, we were both, I think, genuine enough people that who we were on our calls was who we actually were. So it was all good. But that was quite like, oh God, I remember like waiting, like I'd got there from Malaga. He'd got there from the UK, and it was, trying to find each other at the airport. And part of me was like, I don't even know if I want to find him yet, because what if it's already awkward before we even get on the plane? So that was when that happened. I was actually in India when he called me and said, this has just come up and I want to ask you, would you be, up for it? And I just remember being like, I turned to my partner and I was like, never guess what. I've just been invited to go to Costa Rica, all expenses paid. Like that was just crazy.
Amazing. Have as many conversations with as many people as possible.
You never know.
That's so cool.
And to this day, that retreat was like just one of the most crazy experiences ever. Like it was a very non-traditional business retreat, and learned a lot about myself as well. What about you?
I have a story that's more on personal life level, but it's kind of the same concept. So the apartment that I'm currently living in Switzerland, it's a very difficult place to find a place to live for a decent price or in general. So there's very high demand for the apartments here. Lots of people looking for places to live, and it's hard as a foreigner, especially because they prioritize Swiss people. Anyway, I had been searching for an apartment for over 4 months. Doing house visits almost every day, preparing so much paperwork. I was a little bit desperate by then. And I got a message from my boyfriend at the time, sent me a message. He was in Norway and he was at a party in Norway. And he said to me, guess what? I was just talking to somebody at this party. And he has a girlfriend who lives in Lausanne and that's leaving her apartment. How funny is that? And I replied to him, what do you mean, how funny is that? Give me her number.
Yeah, that's not funny. That's serious business.
Do some research. Talk to this person again. And fast forward 3 years, that's the apartment that I live in. So
and have lived in now for...
And have lived in
2 years?
2 years. Yeah.
2 years. Crazy.
So this apartment was found at a house party in Trondheim, Norway.
Craziness.
So there you go. I mean, I think we've covered.
Yeah.
We've covered everything I wanted to discuss.
Yeah, me too, I think. We do have a few questions here for us to give.
Questions that we've been sent in, perhaps.
Yes. So we can maybe go in and see how well equipped we are to answer them.
Let's do it.
None of the advice we give is to be taken too seriously. We are not professionals. This is just life experience. Don't try this at home if you're not. Yeah. All right. First question. How do I network effectively if I'm an introvert? I think this is a good question. Would you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
I would not consider myself an introvert. I think I'm quite an extrovert. It's also come with time. I think it's got a lot to do with how comfortable you are talking to people. I have a very good conversation starter, which is my name. So that's a good one to break the ice. When people ask me my name, I have about a 5-minute conversation set up for me, just with explaining where it comes from and how it's pronounced. I think that's helped me with my networking.
Yes.
But I think as an introvert, I'd say realize that people are all there to talk to people. You're not going to bother anybody by introducing yourself.
That's true.
And maybe have some kind of
like fallback questions.
tips. Yeah.
Is where my mind went
Methods.
to. Yeah, things that you can. So what we were saying of try not to focus on what you want to get out of it, and maybe just focus on being curious about the other person. Maybe deflect a bit of the attention that might be on you.
As an introvert, try and get them talking.
Exactly. Maybe come up with a list of, questions that's just easy. And then things that you can fall back on and talk about that you think might be interesting about yourself. Like if you have something prepared, I think just makes it easier. Like not super duper script like, but yeah. I think people say that like for like first dates and stuff, like you have a few questions to fall back on in case it gets awkward. Networking
Very
is basically dating, let's be honest.
Yeah. There is a thing called speed networking. So it's a lot like speed dating.
Yes.
Also, I think obviously if you can talk to people, it's better. But if sending a message online is also setting up a connection. Huh?
Absolutely.
So,
that you don't maybe have to go to the events if that's not your thing. If you don't feel like your personality can come across well in person at a big event where there's lots of people, that's not your thing. Yeah. Start with a message. Yeah. How do I introduce myself at a networking event without feeling weird?
Yeah, I think that comes to something very similar as the previous one. So everybody's there for that reason. Just go ahead and introduce yourself. Ask them who they are and what they do. And you're often likely to find a common ground, even if it's not to do with work.
Yeah,
be curious about who they are.
Yeah. I feel like this is something that I think we probably do have for an episode in the future, but that, we aren't our jobs. We are so much more than our jobs. So don't be like, because I remember something I would struggle with is, what do I do? How do I answer the question of, I'm Alba and I do what? So no, you can't just be, I am a human. These are some interesting things about me. Maybe not even about your job. Like, we're not our jobs.
Yeah. And also I think people work with people that they like, not necessarily because it's the best company or because you're the cheapest, or people like to work with people that they enjoy speaking to. So just
and feel comfortable with
a person. Yeah. Be a human.
Yep. What's the best way to follow up with someone after an event?
This is a really good question. It's a really good question. I heard a really interesting tip, which was even if you remember very clearly the conversation that you've had with that person, follow up with a couple of elements from that anyway, because 3 months from now, so you can say, it was lovely speaking to you about this subject. Maybe give them something else that you've thought about since then that they could be interested in, because it's a reference point for yourself and for that person if ever you were to have a communication in the future, to quickly look up and be like, who is this person? Yeah. And if you see quickly what you spoke about, you're a lot more likely to jog a memory. Yeah. I think that's a really good tip.
Yeah. I think it is definitely just a good thing to do if you're in any way interested in, furthering that connection with someone that you might have met at an event or something, to just reach out and say something that you said, oh, it was great speaking. Like you say, after our conversation, it got me thinking about this, whatever. And I think that's a really good way of doing it. That also feels natural.
Mm-hmm. And it'll also start a conversation. So they might reply to that with, and that's a way to actually get a conversation going, rather than it just be somebody that you spoke to once and that you're now connected on LinkedIn or following on Instagram. So,
do you want to do the next 3?
Sure. How soon should I follow up after meeting someone new?
Kind of linked to the one before. It's a good question. I think.
Is this like how much time do I wait until I text back?
Yeah, literally. It literally is. I think it can depend on the context that you meet someone.
Absolutely.
You don't want to seem too eager. If you do an event and they might still be at the event. You don't want to be sending them messages and feeling like you're on top of them. I feel like, how soon should I follow up? I think between 24 to 72 hours, 1 to 3 days.
Love the precision of that. answer.
What do you think?
Yeah, like you say, I think it depends a lot on the situation. In my experience, in a very corporate sense of the word networking, if it's at an event or something, I would usually wait until after the event to send an email, because they're probably still going to be busy with that event and will either forget to reply or you'll join that big list of aluminium people that have done the same thing. So I would usually wait till the event is over and then send it maybe the next morning or the next afternoon when they've gone through their inbox. And then if it's more of like a natural conversation you've had with someone, kind of as soon as possible, maybe that same day. If it's just it was nice speaking to you. Here's here's where we can stay in contact, or I've thought about this. And in that case, I would say the same as you. So either within a day or 2 days. Yeah, time they can still remember you. How do I reconnect with an old contact without it feeling forced? Wow.
I actually have a very interesting story for this one. My newest client actually came with a reconnect with an old contact. So I was taking down my board where I'd put like anything work related, like business cards I'd picked up, things that I'd done that I was like proud of, and I was taking it down because it was gathering dust. And I saw there was loads of business cards from when I used to do events, which was like possibly like 3 years ago. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to reach out to everyone and see what happens. And the way I structured this, I was like, there's no way that they do remember me, but I sent an email saying, hi, you may remember me. Well, I'm Alba. You may remember me from an event, in such place, whatever. I just wanted to reach out to let you know that I've now started my own studio. And we focus on this, and this. And, we would love to, we did really love whatever it was that they were doing at that event. I had a general structure for every email, but I made sure to really personalize each one. And my last client that I've just taken on was one of these people who answered saying, oh my God, Alba, I was literally just looking for someone for this.
Wow.
Do you want to come in and do an interview? So that was like crazy. And it's like literally 3 years ago. And I never spoke to them the day after. I didn't do a follow-up or anything because it was a time where I just didn't have the confidence, and everything comes at the right time as well, because it was just timing. They also wouldn't have needed me 3 years ago, maybe. So they were like, we're just looking for someone to fill this position. When can you come in? So I think, maybe saying something to jog their memory, even if they don't. I feel like because for me, the hardest thing, I don't know about you, is coming up with a good subject for the email. That subject line, anything you think of looks like a scam. Looks like your generic marketing person that's just like being annoying. And so that, for me, the structure of the email, I came up with it quite quickly. But then when I was trying to think of the subject line, I was like, what do I put? And I ended up putting reintroducing myself.
Brilliant. Love it.
And I thought, hopefully that kind of, it makes it feel a bit like you already know me. But so, yeah, I just said, this is me, in case you remember me, which I knew they wouldn't because it's their event and I'm just a photographer for a magazine. I never had any direct contact with them apart from when I took the business card at the end, and just tried to make an impression with who I am, what I do, and in case they needed me, and try and make it friendly, approachable, and just like just in case, I just wanted to let you know.
I think something really interesting to take out of that is, no matter what you're contacting them for, maybe try and tell them something new, or give your email or your message a different meaning of being. So tell them something new that you've done recently, or maybe ask them something about something that they've done recently. So have a look what they've been doing. Check their LinkedIn, check their Instagram, or whatever platform. You can see everything everybody's doing these days. and say, oh, hey, I saw that you've been doing this. That's super interesting. I'd love to know more. By the way, I have this new service, or maybe not even, maybe just start a conversation and then slowly introduce the whatever you're contacting them for. And I think that makes it a lot less forced. Feels less forced.
Yeah, I think everyone's just sick of being like, they're feeling like they're being sold stuff all the time. So it's to find that, a bit more human connection rather than just trying to sell yourself. We basically said that at the beginning, so full circle.
Brilliant. That means it's a brilliant place to end.
Yes. So we hope you enjoyed our second episode, but our first deep dive into a topic that we felt we wanted to discuss and talk about and get different perspectives on. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. I know I loved it. I love chatting. I feel like I could keep going.
Yeah, we could chat forever. We try and keep it interesting.
Yeah, we try.
Not just personal blabber.
So yeah,
I would love to get our listeners more involved as well. So as soon as these episodes are online and we can start asking you guys questions and get your stories and maybe get a couple of you on the podcast, hear your sides of things. We look forward to
ultimate goal. Absolutely. That would be absolutely amazing. And if you do want to see anything about the podcast, we are on basically all the social media platforms you can think of. We Will Manage Podcast. And we'll see you next week for a deep dive into presenting yourself online, because whether you like it or not, you got to do it nowadays.
I'll look forward to that one. Yeah. This is my internet debut.
It is. So see you soon.
See you then.